Much like last month, GT7 1.54 has brought with it 10 different engine swaps, and even though some of these swaps are doubled up both within this pack of 10, if you will, we do have a new swap in there as well, and the thing which I actually quite like the most is the eclectic mix of cars that we've got this time around. German, Italian, Japanese, American, even Swedish this time around, and like I said, it is 10 cars, which is great to see again, much like last time. It's a lot more to do than just the usual 5, although saying that it's a lot more to do, it's also a lot more cash, because a couple of these motor swaps are very, very expensive. If you include the cost of all of these on top of the cars themselves, this might actually be the single most expensive update we've ever had in GT7, possibly even without the engine swaps, but almost certainly with them. First up, we've got the classic Alfa Giulia, which is a cool one. It's a K24 Civic engine swap, so not necessarily the most exciting for classic purists, but then again, would a purist want to swap an Alfa Giulia engine out in the first place? Still, if you do need horsepower, it's definitely not going to be lacking there. The next one is a bit more expected. As soon as I saw that there was going to be a motor swap available for the 2016 shape Audi R8 V10 Plus, well, you could probably guess what motor swap that was going to be. It's not going to be something like a V8, of course, it's a Chiron engine. So if you want even more horsepower and crazy performance out of your Audi, that's pretty much the way to go. And it wasn't exactly slow to begin with. I haven't done that one yet, because obviously these are 1.6 mil each, which is basically the price of a car at that point. In fact, it is in many cases, but doubtless it will be crazy quick, and I would be very curious to know what kind of speeds people have got already from doing that. The next one is another quite cute one. I think I prefer this actually over the Alpha. It's another classic though, with the Auto Bianchi A112 Abarth with, again, the K-Series Civic engine. That thing must absolutely fly, and even though sometimes you can overdo it on a front-wheel drive chassis, I feel like this one could be more of a weapon, perhaps, than the Giulia, because the Giulia having rear-wheel drive with huge power could be very leery on such a short wheelbase, whereas with this, at least you've got the super low weight and the front-wheel drive to kind of keep it in check to some degree. The classic Mini, though, with the engine swap is a bit of a beast, and the classic Golf with the motor swap is an absolutely crazy thing to drive at high speeds, so this could end up being the same. The next one is another very odd swap. I'm not familiar with anyone doing something like this in real life, that's for sure, but if you want even more power out of an already ridiculous vehicle, the Dodge Demon Challenger with, once again, a Chiron swap. So a W16 1800 horsepower Dodge Challenger. Awesome for sure, but a little unrelated, you could say. In fact, it kind of reminds me more so of the 1500 horsepower Aventador swaps in Forza Horizon. Next up, we add the Mitsubishi Evo 8 to the swaps list. Curiously though, a bit of a different swap on this one compared to the other Evos, where you could kind of mix and match a lot of the same engines. This time it's the LS7 engine from, of course, the Drift Subaru BRZ. So in other words, a 1200 horsepower Evo. Maybe they heard us saying about the lack of horsepower on this thing, because it definitely isn't lacking now. 1200 horsepower in an Evo platform, that thing's got to be an absolute monster to drive, and I'm really looking forward to driving that one. And of course I put that one in the thumbnail, because what a beast that thing's bound to be. The next one is actually a very recent car, the final run, if you will, T-Spec series Nissan GTR. Once again, surprise surprise, the Chiron engine. Of course, we've already seen that before for a GTR, a couple of different motor swaps in fact within the R35 lineage. I guess if you want to go for the ultimate GTR in its ultimate form, this is the swap for you. Next up, we have an additional swap for a vehicle which, if I recall correctly, I think already had one, the 2016 991 shape Porsche GT3 RS. Now I think we already had the M97 engine, which, if I recall again, I think that's the RSR race car engine if I recall correctly, but now we've got the DKH 911 engine, which is of course the 911 Turbo. And as someone pointed out recently in the comments, and this is exactly correct because I was thinking the same thing myself, you can kind of use this to go back to a very early Special Projects pack and make an even more accurate kind of GT2 RS replica, which of course is the visual package that I've got on here, but back when I built this, we didn't have a turbo option for the GT3 RS, so we did as good as we could, and we certainly got up to the right power level, but it didn't quite have that turbo punch or that turbo sound, so it might be worth revisiting that at some point, but we'll have to see, maybe some kind of update build. Next up, keeping on the theme of that newer engine though, and I feel like this engine might pop up more than once in future, it might come up as another one of those mainstays, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Another DKH aka 911 Turbo engine for the 2014 Subaru WRX Type S. That's an interesting one, and obviously there are quite a few comparisons for obvious reasons with Subaru boxer engines, Porsche flat engines, swapping one to the other, usually, let's be honest, one way rather than the other. But if you want more power again out of your Subaru, then sure, that's a pretty badass engine to do it with. The next one is, of course, much like last time and a few times recently, a debut swap for a debut vehicle. So in other words, getting a motor swap for a car in the same day as the car being added to the game, which is of course the Jimny Sierra JC with, again, that K24 Civic engine. So if you want crazy horsepower out of your tiny little Jimny, that's the swap for you. You can get good power for what it is out of the standard engine anyway, up around 300 horses, but this of course is way beyond that level. And last, and definitely not least, much like last time with the Hi-Ace van with the crazy motor swap, well, this one's got the exact same motor swap, but in the Volvo 240 SE estate. That car had decent enough power in its own way. What was it, about 350 horses, I think? You'll see it on screen here anyway. But now, much like the Evo, and of course I put it in the thumbnail, 1,200 horsepower in your rear-wheel drive, fairly lightweight wagon, thanks to, again, the Subaru BRZ LS7 swap. That thing is bound to be ridiculously fun to drive, perhaps a little undrivable, depending on the tyres that you've got it on. I think some of these could be quite useful, more than anything. Certainly if you want to use your Evo more, but want to take it up against cars on tracks where they have a huge power advantage, well, that advantage isn't there anymore, because a 1200 horsepower Evo is possibly the standout from all of these in terms of just being an absolute monster to use. And obviously anything with a Chiron engine swap is always going to be crazy. Like I said, I'm actually a big fan of the selection this time. The motor swaps themselves are nothing too special for the most part. You know, you've got your usual K-Series and LS7s, but the new 911 turbo engine is cool, and it's more so the cars, which I really like this time, because it's less of a theme and more eclectic, and I will always choose eclectic over a theme, because with a theme you'll appeal to some people but then everyone else kind of gets left out. And if you notice my special projects, that's exactly what I do with those. I like to have a load of different styles of machine all mixed in together so that at least everyone's got something to latch onto and to enjoy. And naturally, if this is the first motor swap video you've watched from me, I've actually catalogued literally every single swap in the game. So if you look down in the description, there's a ton of links to all of the previous installments where you can see every single motor swap that you can do in Gran Turismo 7. So I'll see you either in one of those videos or in a future one, and for now, thanks for watching.